All right, guys, welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today we're going to be looking at Week 5 preview and analysis for what is a loaded weekend in college football. So basically we're going to look at the three different time slots, at noon, the 3:30 slate, and then the 7:30 slate, and cover all the games in those different time slots. It's a loaded week, a lot to get into. So Arkansas, they travel to Georgia, 12 p.m. It's been a big year for the Hogs, 4 wins. They haven't had that many wins in years. They've led 4 or less over the last 4 or 5 years, so it's been a big year for Sam Pittman and his group. 18-point underdogs at Georgia. Makes sense. They beat a Texas A&M squad. They had a backup quarterback. A very impressive win against Texas at home. So they got some good wins on their resume, but this is a different task. You look at this defensive and offensive line for Arkansas. They've been very physical in the trenches, running the ball very well. The offense, they slowed down when KJ Jefferson went out with a knee injury last week. I thought they were very good. They were very conservative. Didn't fold the momentum shift to Isaiah Spiller. Ran away for a 67-yard touchdown. Other than that, they were pretty dominant in the trenches. Trey Williams has been phenomenal off the edge because it's, 3 new transfers that came in to seal up that defensive line. Williams is one. John Ridgeway is another notable one. That gap got sealed, though, on the interior, and Spiller was gone, so... other than that, it was clogged up with Justin Schaefer, 340 pounds of left guard, Jameer Solera, left tackle. Good offensive line. How will they fare against them? Remains to be seen. This is the biggest test yet. I thought they looked good on their offensive line themselves, though. The O-line matches up much better than Clemson's did against Georgia. 6'5", 320 is the average for Arkansas. Big offense. Fresh group of backs, Raheem Sanders, Traylon Smith, Dominique Johnson. They're going to have fresh backs all game. KJ Jefferson, he's a really good runner himself. A lot of size. He runs with physicality in his own right. They made big plays in the passing game last week. Burks won a one-on-one, and then A.J. Green he housed a 47-yarder. So this passing game got going, as it did versus Georgia Southern, too. They're heating up a bit. Number 1 rush defense, though, they're facing in back-to-back seasons. They're on pace to do it again as the Bulldogs. Look at Jordan Davis, Devontae Wyatt, Nakobe Dean. A loaded front 7. Nolan Smith as well. These guys are just good. Since 2019, they've only allowed 7 games of 100-plus yards, 0 200-yard rushing games in that same stretch. This defensive front is incredibly good. How will they match up against it? I think they match up against it well, but that doesn't mean that Georgia's not going to win that matchup still. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in the trenches. The Bulldogs' offense, they're getting healthy. This is going to be their biggest test so far, though. Brock Bowers has stepped up at tight end while Gilbert and Washington are gone 6'4", 230, that is. Moves so well, the offense ran the ball well versus Clemson. I think the jury's still kind of out on them, though. How will JT Daniels fare? Rumors have it he's a little banged up, not too bad, but something to monitor for sure. Excited to see how this Georgia secondary plays, with Tyreek Smith back. They're going to be tested vertically, though, by Burks. Can they afford to sit in zone? I think they match up well in man coverage, but zone should be interesting. For Arkansas to win this game, though, they just have to be more physical than Georgia. Can they do that? Well, I think most certainly they can. They've proven they can really win the battle in the trenches so far. Will they do that? It's a tough ask to go to Athens and do that. I think Arkansas can win this game most definitely. I don't see. I understand why they're 18-point underdogs, but I think they'll cover that. I'll pick Georgia 31-21. I think they're going to have some success running the ball because that's really their MO. That's their bread and butter. I think they're going to seal up gaps a little bit better than A&M did. I see them running for about 200 yards in this game. They could seriously get overpowered, too, and then it'll be on the shoulders of JT Daniels. Guys like Kyrus Jackson, Jermaine Burton, Bowers, as we mentioned. It should be interesting to see how this vertical passing game themselves fares. I'm going to pick Georgia 31-21. I think if Arkansas controls the trenches, though, on the defensive side of the ball, they could have a real shot in this game, so I'm going to take Georgia 31-21. Looking at Michigan and Wisconsin, this game's so close to pick 'em right now in the casinos. Wisconsin's run defense incredibly elite, giving up 1 yard per carry. Notre Dame just got held to 3 rushing yards. Penn State, they only came up with 50. Eastern Michigan got held in check as well. They had more than Notre Dame. Jackson Hammer and Leo Chanel vent in the middle, cleaning things up. Nick Herbig and Burks on the outside. Noah Burks, they've been incredibly elite. Keanu Benton's been stepping up. It's just incredibly hard to run against these guys. Michigan offensive line was pretty good. Andrew Vestardis at center. It's an underrated unit for sure. They've really been sealing up the edge of this year. They're going to have to do that incredibly well here against Wisconsin. On the other side, they gave up 325 yards rushing was Michigan last season against the Badgers. They gave up 200 almost 200 last week. The Rutgers, they weren't very good. Donovan Vegeta, 325 pounds. He's going to have to step up. Aiden Hutchinson and Josh Ross. Overall, it's a pretty good front seven. I think they're going to load up the box a bit to slow down this run game because they got torched last year. And last week, they didn't look good. Going against Graham Mertz, who's just obviously not very good whatsoever. So if they can slow down this run, they'll have a good shot of getting to Mertz, making him make some mistakes. I think they're going to win the field position battle. I think Michigan, even though they have some juice in the backfield with Blake Corum, Hassan Haskins, those guys will rip off some runs, I think, on the edge. The interior, though, I don't know. I don't really think they have a – it's not that it's a bad matchup. It's just Wisconsin's so good at sealing things up on the interior. So I think they'll make some plays on the edge. I don't think they're going to have a great day running the ball. I'm interested to see how Cade McNamara plays because he hasn't really been tested this year. He's going to be tested in this game going on the road. I just think they're going to win the field position battle. Wisconsin's not going to be able to move the ball at all. Their defense is great, but Mertz, just not a fan whatsoever. He turns the ball way over too much. He's not accurate, doesn't make good decisions. I don't think he really does anything good for them. It's been incredibly disappointing to watch him play football this year. That's what's going to cost them, even though being at home. Great shot of winning. Michigan, they've always had trouble in Madison, but I think here they're going to they've yet to turn the ball over this year, too. That's one important thing. I don't think they're going to turn it over here. If they do, I don't see them doing an extreme amount. I think you'll see them probably turn the ball over once. That'll be it. But I think for the rest of the game, they're going to win the field position battle, and that'll allow them to score. I'm going to take them to win 16-9. I'll take the Wolverines in this one. This team's a little different. Last year they got incredibly torched at home, but this team's a lot different this year. In the same time slot, you see Minnesota and Purdue is an interesting one. But I think Texas and TCU is the game I want to focus on here. The TCU defense has been just terrible this year. They gave up 350 yards rushing last week to SMU. New task here in Bijan Robinson, Roschon Johnson. Casey Thompson's been really good downfield in play action. I think Texas is going to cover the spread in this one. I see them winning 44-29. Texas, this offense, if TCU's defense, they'll improve over the year, but no way they're going to improve overnight and try and be able to stop Bijan Robinson. They were just so bad last week against SMU, a great offense. But it's been the story all year long. They got throttled by Cal as well, so this TCU defense is very questionable at the moment. Louisville and Wake Forest. I'll take Wake Forest in this ballgame. I think it'll be a close one. I'm going to take them to win 31-30. Their defensive line was really good last week against Virginia. They were forcing some pressure, finding the ball, making some tackles. They had a nice balance, too. They got 3 different running backs involved. Christian Beal-Smith, Sam Hartman throwing downfield. Their play-action game is really nice. A.T. Perry's having a big season. Robinson's not getting all the focus. They have a nice little 1-2 punch there. So I think this offense is going to be a little too much for Louisville. This should be a really good game, though. 12:30 kickoff. I'll take Wake Forest, but it's really a close one. Moving to 2:30, you see number 7 Cincinnati, number 9 Notre Dame. A huge game of playoff implications. I think Cincinnati's actually favored in this one going to South Bend. Not that Notre Dame's like the 2-point favorite. I can't recall, but I know someone's a 2-point favorite. I'm pretty sure it's Cincinnati. The Bearcats got a very favorable matchup here. Notre Dame's offensive line has just been terrible this year. They're ranked 129th in FBS out of 130 teams in sacks and tackles for loss allowed. They gave up 6 sacks last week to Wisconsin, but they also held up very well at times, allowed Jack Cohen to have some very good success on the boundaries. Guys like Kelvin Austin, Avery Davis really stepped up. Michael Mayer, I think, is going to get a little more involved this week. The Cincinnati pass rush has just been non-existent this year. They only have a couple of sacks. The defensive line's not been very productive. They've had some struggles slowing down the run. Like Indiana had some success running the ball. Most of that came in the first half, but that's not a very good running offense at all for the Hoosiers, and they were able to have some success. I think you'll see against this 3-3-5, the Irish have some success running the ball around 100, 120 yards. I don't think it's going to be nothing crazy because the offensive line is still very questionable. Myjah Sanders for Cincinnati, he's yet to show up this year. I don't think he even has a tackle for loss, let alone a sack. Darian Beavers, he's been their top player at linebacker. But the defensive line so far for Cincy, he's not been great. Only 4 sacks in those 3 games they've played so far. So the 3 or 4 games they've played, it has not been a great pass rush for them. I think Notre Dame, just kind of like last week, they're going to have some success on the boundary. They should be able to run the ball much better than they did against Wisconsin. Having this home crowd is really going to help. The Irish's defense has been getting better week to week. You've seen them last year force 5 turnovers. Of course, they're playing a quarterback, as I just mentioned, who was just not impressive at all. But still, your execution, putting yourself in position to make plays. JT Purdan, Bertan, that is, at linebacker. He's been a very big playmaker. I thought this defensive front played a lot better as well. Isaiah Foskey, Myron Tagovailoa, Amoza. They really stepped up last week. Cam Hart at corner, he played a very good game. You got Kyle Hamilton. I think they're going to do a lot to take away this Cincinnati passing game. I think they're going to be able to hold up in some man coverage. I like them to be able to play some zone as well. Very tall task for Desmond Ridder. Those guys are incredibly confident going into this game. But I think Notre Dame's going to win this one. I think they're going to win this one 24-17. I like what Cincinnati has. They have really good balance. Middle of the pack offensive line. Jerome Ford running the ball. Wiley at tight end. Michael Young, Alec Pierce. They have some really good wide receivers. They're going to have to win their matchups. You saw against Indiana, they had a couple they had like 3 or 4 3-and-outs in a row. Couldn't get much going offensively. It's not going to be any easier with this home crowd. Like that, the home crowd was rattling Ridder in that offense pretty well. It's not going to be any easier against Notre Dame. So I see the Irish winning this game. They have a little bit of confidence after last week. They were losing in the fourth quarter against Wisconsin, and then they had that onslaught of points, mainly due to the opposing quarterback not being very good. You won't see that here, but I think they're playing with some confidence now. They believe that they're starting to trend in the right direction. The offensive line, though, really needs to step up more. That's their biggest question mark, because Jack Cohen's playing really good football. If they can just get back to running the ball a little bit more, it's going to be really hard to stop the Irish. I think, like I said, they're going to run the ball a little better in this game. Cohen's going to make some good plays, and 24-14 or 17, I'm taking the Irish. Looking at the 3:30 slate, Ole Miss and Alabama kicks things off. Last year, you seen 63-48 Bama, 1,300-plus yards in this game. Ole Miss ran the ball so well. The dual punch of Snoop Connor, Jerry and Ely. Very nice offense Ole Miss has coming in this game. Matt Corral, you guys got like Ja'Cour Pearson, Braylon Sanders, Dontario Drummond. They're incredibly deep at receiver. They're going to get all those guys involved. The vertical seam routes of Ole Miss, this offense runs very fast. They run with a lot of pace, a lot of tempo. The play calling as well. I remember last year watching this game, I've never seen an offensive coordinator call a better game than Ole Miss did last year, than Jeff Lebby did last year. Very good offense for Ole Miss. They couldn't buy a stop last year, though. Alabama averaged a first down a play. They were averaging over 10 yards per play. Will you see that in this game? Well, they couldn't buy a stop last year in this Ole Miss defense. I think they just need to be slightly better, just a small step better. They've played much better with Chance Campbell coming over from Maryland under DJ Durkin. The Alabama offense, Bryce Young. These guys, with Bryce Young at the helm, they didn't look great against Ford after the first quarter. They kind of slowed down. They took care of business throughout the contest, but considering you dropped 21 points in the first quarter and then only scored 10 the rest of the way, it was, it's not very impressive. They come back home here. Great dual backs. They should be able to run the ball pretty well, I'd say, in this game. You got running backs like Brian Robinson, Jace McClellan. Roydell Williams, he's getting involved as well. Trey Sanders. So a deep group of backs. We're going to see a lot of points in this game. The Alabama secondary, I think it's among one of the nation's best. But how will they hold up here? They didn't hold up great last year. Matt Corral kind of had a field day with them. That's just kind of how the Ole Miss offense works. It's a high-volume passing attack. They love the play against the zone. You really can't afford to play them in man coverage. The Alabama defense, they got torched when they played Florida. Gave up 240-plus rushing yards. Linebackers were significantly out of place. The defensive line wasn't generating penetration. But mainly Henry Tioto and the linebacking core, these guys they were out of place a lot. Florida had significant success running the ball to the boundary outside the tackles. It was just an onslaught against them. They could not stop running the ball. I think Alabama, they're 14-point favorites for a reason. I think Ole Miss, their offense is going to come in here. They're going to play really well. Ole Miss has had the magic before against Alabama. I think we're going to see a shootout. I'm going to take Ole Miss 48-45, though. I'm going to go with the upset. I've picked it before, and I've been right before with Ole Miss against Alabama. I could definitely see it happen here again. I'd like to be on that side of the stick coming into this game, especially since we just saw Alabama's defense. They gave up almost 50 points last year, almost 700 yards of offense to Ole Miss. And the Ole Miss defense is a step better, I think, coming in this year. That's what they're going to need to do. No shame in getting this game wrong, though, for picking against Alabama. So I'm going to go for Ole Miss in this game, 48-45. I think we're going to see a shootout. If there's anything if both of these teams score less than 35 points, I'd be incredibly shocked. But I think you're going to see a lot of points, a lot of offense, and I think Lane Kiffin's going to have some magic here. Nick Saban's never lost to a 23-0 against assistants. I think that's a reason why you should probably pick Alabama, but I'm gonna pick Ole Miss in this game. Wouldn't be shocked one beat. I picked Alabama to win the national championship, but their defense was a little concerning last week. Their offense kind of lacked efficiency towards the end of that Florida game. I think you're going to see a much better Crimson Tide offense, but I like Ole Miss in a shootout. Looking at Oregon and Stanford, Stanford's played much better since they got smoked week 1 to Kansas State. Tanner McKee's playing really good ball. They're running the ball pretty solidly as well as the Cardinal. Oregon coming into this game, 5 interceptions last week against Arizona. This secondary's really heating up. Verone McKinley, Michael Wright, really good ball players for the Ducks. Anthony Brown, he's running this offense very well. They were a little stagnant at times against Arizona, but they have a big, powerful offensive line. C.J. Verdell running the ball, Travis Dye as well. This Oregon team, this Oregon-Stanford rivalry, has always been a really good one over the last couple of years. And then you see Stanford a little resurgent this season. Can Stanford win this game? Most definitely. Will they? That's a different story. I don't think they will. I think they're going to – one thing they have to do is they have to establish the run, get Tanner McKee comfortable. He's going against a really good secondary. Give guys like Bryson Tremaine a chance. This Stanford team, though, they've gotten a lot better in the trenches since that Week 1 loss. Their defense, that was still kind of a liability. They gave up 400 yards to UCLA, plenty of balance. They almost gave up 400 to Vanderbilt, too. 250 of those yards came on the ground. No, every team they've played this year ran for 185 yards or more. Stanford's ground game has just not been good defensively. That's going to be the biggest problem here because the Ducks love to do that. You've seen what they did to Ohio State, got them moving vertically. Ohio State played a lot of man coverage, though, that really hurt them. I think you won't see that with Stanford. I think they'll make the appropriate adjustments if they're unable to get off their blocks, unable to get to the runner. But I think Oregon's going to run the ball pretty effectively here. I think they're going to control clock, make life a little easier for make life hard on a one-dimensional offense. Stanford couldn't run the ball last week. You've seen what they had significant troubles against Kansas State. That was a month ago by now. But overall, just too inconsistent offensively. Against USC, they had one 80-yard rushing I think it was an 80-yard rushing touchdown that really skewed their numbers. So overall, this has not been a good rushing attack with Nathaniel Pete, Austin Jones. So I think Tanner McKee will have some success. But I also think he's going to throw 2 interceptions. I think they're going to be pretty one-dimensional all game. Oregon's going to have 40 minutes of possession time. I see him winning this game 34-17. I think they'll take care of business against the Cardinals on the road, that is, as well. Oklahoma and Kansas State, 2 in a row for the Wildcats. They're coming off a big loss to Oklahoma State. Pretty disappointing game. Deuce Vaughn was held in check all game, and that's their bread and butter. If they can't run the ball, they're not going to have success. As long as Skylar Thompson's out of the lineup. Will Howard's good when they're able to run the ball and they're able to execute the game plan, but when they're not, he's not great for them. So, but the thing with the Sooners is they have lost twice in a row to the Wildcats last year. They were up big, blew the lead at home. They come back to Manhattan for this one. It's going to be a tough one. This Kansas State defense has been playing really good, though. Eli Huggins, Khaled Duke on the defensive front. I say they've been playing good. Last week they kind of had their issues. Like Spencer Sanders went off on them. Sanders has struggled significantly to start the year. He had almost 350 passing. They had nice balance, 2 for Warren running the ball. Almost gave up 500 yards to the Pokes offense. It's really been struggling this year. This Kansas State defense is tough, though. If their offense can match pace, if their offense is not, getting completely shut down, then they're a good football team. When they run the football very well, they're able to throw the ball, too, when they have to and be effective with doing so, or efficient, rather. Are they going to do in this game? I don't think so. The Oklahoma defense is really good. They have nice depth, nice speed. They're playing very tough. The biggest question mark with Oklahoma, though, I'd like to say that their defense is legit. Jalen Redmond, Nick Bonito, guys like that. They've really made this defense stout. Marion Winfrey, Isaiah Coe, Isaiah Thomas. They're just incredibly deep on the defensive line. They're playing really good football. They held Letty Brown in check last week. 67 yards and almost 30 carries for West Virginia. No one's ran for over 100 yards yet on the Sooners. Tulane was right there at the century mark, but no one's topped it yet. 2.5 yards a carry allowed. This rushing defense is legit. I think they're going to bottle up Deuce Vaughn for a majority of this game. Will their offense get going, though? I really do not know. Their offensive line has just been incredibly poor this year. Spencer Rattler's not making great decisions or seeing the field very well. So this game will probably be closer than it should. And again, Kansas State's won 2 in a row, so you'd figure it'd be a close game. Their defense will take care of business. I just cannot bank on this Oklahoma offense showing up just yet, especially when they're playing a very active defensive line, as I mentioned just a minute ago, with guys like Huggins and Duke. I see Oklahoma winning this game. I think they'll finally hit the 30-point mark in conference play. I see them scoring 32, Kansas State being held to 14. Oklahoma seems to disappoint, though, and play one-possession games every week now. Three of their games already this year against FBS schools are. So you'll probably see it again. I'm going to pick them to win by 32-14. I think they'll have the offense held up. They'll have some good field position. Should force some turnovers or two. I think they'll get on track a little bit. Against the Kansas State secondary, it's not very good, and they just came off a bad game against Spencer Sanders, one of the lower skilled passers, I guess you could say, in the conference. Ohio State and Rutgers, this could be interesting. Rutgers, they're playing elite defense right now, held Michigan's running game in check last week. Sean Tucker was held in check a couple weeks ago in Syracuse. They play everybody tough. Greg Schiano against his former team here. Pulling up a spread right now. I'm not sure what the number is. But Ohio State, their defense is not really impressed yet this year. They're really struggling to contain the run. 15-point spread is what it is in favor of the Buckeyes going on the road. The offense for Ohio State, they got clicking last week with Kyle McCord. C.J. Stroud will be back again. They played against Akron. That first drive, the Zips went right downfield and scored. Didn't do anything the rest of the game. This defense is still a concern. How will they do against Isaiah Pacheco at running back? Bo Melton's a really good receiver. Are they going to be able to contain him? I'm not sure. Noah Verdell, if he plays a really good game, Rutgers can most certainly, because this defense is not giving up anything, like 150 yards through the air, 112 on the ground. Julius Turner, Fatukowski at linebacker, they're playing really good football. They're going to be a tough ask every week with Greg Schiano as coach. I think Ohio State, though, they're going to establish some nice balance because the teams they've played so far don't really have that for Rutgers. When they play Temple in week 1, not a good football team. Syracuse, they don't have any balance really. Michigan, they've yet to showcase they have balance yet. They're able to clog up that run. Ohio State, I believe they have that balance with Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave. I think you're going to see C.J. Stroud step up, make some more plays, especially now kind of with an edge, knowing his job could be up for grabs. He didn't play last week due to a shoulder. I think you'll see this offense start to make some strides, but wouldn't be shocked one bit if this is a close game. I'm going to pick Ohio State 38 to 18, I think, for Rutgers would be a good number. I think Ohio State, this could be a struggling game for them. They should be able to take care of business and cover here because I think this offense is a different attack than what the Rutgers and Scarlet Knights have seen all year. The bounce should get to them. They'll make a lot of plays in open field. If they can play some good zone coverage, though, and Overall plays a good game, Rutgers will probably have a great shot of winning this game. Looking at the night slate, we'll kick it off here with a 6 p.m. contest, Florida and Kentucky. Florida, Emory Jones starting to get things going. Still has more interceptions than touchdowns. He had almost 400 yards of offense last week. 144 rushing, over 200 passing with some scores. Looking very good. This running game for Florida is just really stout. I can't really express how good they've been. Wright's been getting involved. Damian Pierce, Malik Davis, they're all pitching in. Jones himself running the ball. This is one of the nation's top running attacks. I think they're 8th in the country right now. Going against the Kentucky team, though, they have some serious juice on offense. Will Levis, they've kind of came down to earth the last few weeks. They're not playing as good as they were in the first 2 weeks, but they still have that talent. With Will Levis at quarterback, he only had 102 yards last week. He'll have to be more effective here. He can air it out. He's got 2 weapons in Josh Ali and Wan'Dale Robinson. They also have a phenomenal run game of their own behind a veteran offensive line with Darian Kennard. Great duo of Chris Rodriguez, Cavourzier, Smoke. Smoke hasn't did much this year. It's really been all Rodriguez, averaging 130 a game, is one of the nation's leading rushers. I think this offense has some serious juice, though. Playing at home is going to give them an edge. The Florida defense, of course, for the final 45 minutes, they played a really good game against Alabama. How will they handle this attack, though, going on the road? Seems it's a significant trap game. They held up pretty well against Bryce Young and Alabama, though, in that game. Will they do the same here? They have some nice size with Daquan Newkirk at defensive tackle. The whole defensive line is really good. Brandon Cox, Zachary Carter. The pass rush for the Gators is very fierce. I think going on the road is going to be a big challenge, though, and this is a good defense they're playing. Jaquiz Jones, a linebacker. The Wildcats have been pretty good against the run. Chattanooga had some success. Just look at that kind of like a fluke game, a bad week for them. Held up well against Tyler Beatty. Tyler Beatty's probably one of the best backs in the conference, and they held up very well against him, held him in check. Kentucky's yet to allow 400 yards this week. They struggled themselves offensively last week against South Carolina at Columbus. As I said, Jones, DeAndre Square, Yusuf Coker at defensive back at safety, Josh Pascal defensive end. J.J. Weaver's played very well this year so far. These guys have been making plays. They've been getting in the backfield. They've been running the ball well. I'm picking Kentucky with the upset here. I think being at home with the juice they have offensively, I think they're going to have the edge here. I think they're going to win this game. Over the last couple of years, it's been hard for Florida to come into Lexington and win. Emory Jones, even though he's playing better ball, the turnovers are still a bit of a concern. I think you're going to see some get forced here because I think he's going to have to make more plays. I think Kentucky's going to kind of hold up this run pretty well. They're playing a very massive offensive line. They've been pushing around people all year long so far, running the ball very well. I'm going to take the Wildcats in this game, though, 23-20. You look at Mississippi State and Texas A&M. The Aggies coming off a loss to Arkansas. Zach Calzada, he just wasn't good in the last week's game. Early in the year against Colorado, he wasn't very good either. He's missed open receivers. He's been afraid to take shots downfield. And he's just afraid of the zone. He doesn't want to take risks, doesn't want to throw it. It's not like he's making bad decisions and negatively impact the team, but he's not making good ones either. He's making a decision to be conservative or just not making one that's going to just not take a risk, to help the team, which, in a sense you can respect it, but as well, these guys need him to step up and perform. Isaiah Spiller, Devon Achane, they have a very tough matchup against a great Mississippi State run defense. These guys are only giving up 71 yards per game. They've been clogging lanes all year long so far. A very tough Mississippi State defense. Jed Johnson's really stepped up at linebacker. Nathaniel Watson as well. Aaron Brule. These guys are really good at stopping the run. It's kind of a committee. Jaden Crumedy, that is a defensive tackle. He's probably their best defensive lineman. But the rest of that's kind of been by committee. Everyone's really stepping up and pitching in. This back end, too, Emmanuel Forbes. He's so good at making plays on the ball. He only had a pick last week. He's already got 2 on the year. Fred Peters is stepping up, one of those senior safeties, Martin Emerson. These guys are really stout on the outside. Going on the road to Kyle Field is going to be a tough ask. They're playing a defense that, for the most part, they're pretty good. Against Arkansas. Not really. They were down 17 in that first half. 2 big passing plays were allowed. The defensive line was kind of neutralized. They're going to have an edge here against the Mississippi State line. It's not really great. They've been playing a little better. Charles Cross, he's a big-time prospect. A high-volume passing attack could cause problems for the Aggies. I think their defensive line is going to step up. I do think they're, Michael Clemens, Jaden Peavy, the list goes on to Marvin Leal. They're really good up front. I think this is going to be a very tough game for the Aggies. I think they'll find a way to win. I could totally see them losing this game, though, because if they become one-dimensional on offense, Mississippi State is capable of doing that. I'm just going to actually go ahead and go with Mississippi State. I see him coming on the road here, a 7-point underdog, and I see him knocking off the Aggies 26-21. Actually, we'll go less than that. We'll go 17-14. It's just I don't really trust Zach Calzada. He's only against a good secondary, a good defensive line, too. LSU kind of had their way with the passing game. Max Johnson's a bit of a gamer, though. None of the receivers are as good as Keyshawn Boutte is. So the defense, though, they played well against the run. They did give those pass plays. I don't think the Aggies are really capable of the same thing through the air. I got some burners, though, in Demas. I know Chase Lane's a good pass catcher. Jalen Weidermeyer, how are they going to contain them? That remains to be seen. I think they're up for the challenge, though. And on this high-volume passing attack, they like the control clock. Very tough to slow down. Good defense the Aggies have, but what's their offense going to be able to do? I think they're at a big disadvantage here, and I think it's going to help Mississippi State. So I'm going to pick them to take the upset here in this ballgame. Baylor and Oklahoma State, a ranked Big 12 matchup. The Bears' defense is incredibly good. Going into last week's game against Iowa State, I wasn't concerned with their offense. I was just very questionable about how they would show up because early in the year they've been so good, but they haven't played anybody. So it was a game that we got to finally find out about them. Went off in the first half. Second half, Matt Campbell, in typical Iowa State fashion, made those adjustments, locked him up. Tristan Ebner, though, had a giant kick return. That was their only touchdown of the second half. Gary Bohannon's being effective, efficient through the air, 218 yards a game. He's not turning it over. They're running the ball for almost 300 a game. Anaya Smith is one of those guys. Abraham Smith is one of those guys stepping up out of the backfield. They're running the ball so well. Coming into the year, I knew how good this defense was. It was Tristan Ebner, one of those backs as well. We kind of figured that the offense would have to step up for this team to win games. Because coming into the year, I made a bold prediction of saying this would be the best defense in the conference. Jalen Pitre, Terrell Blanchard at linebacker, probably the best linebacking duo in all of college football. These guys are really no joke at all. And, of course, they're playing astonishing football right now. And they're also getting help from guys like Ashton Logan, Gabe Hall on the defensive front. These guys are playing really good. I really like this Baylor defense. I like the Oklahoma State defense a little bit better, though. Brock Martin's really stepped up. Malcolm Rodriguez is the nation's leading tackler, or he's in the top running for that. He's inside the top 3, top 5. Rodriguez has been so good this year. Almost 50 stops. This rush defense for the Cowboys has been incredibly ecstatic. Last 2 weeks, they've stonewalled Kansas State and Boise for under 65 yards each. Boise don't really run the ball too well to begin with, but still, that's a tough opponent you got to show up for every week. Deuce Vaughn, though, he got absolutely throttled. He was held in check last week by this defense. These guys are playing really good. Colby Harvey-Pell in the back end. The secondary, with the 5-man group they roll out, been very solid. Early in the year, they kind of had their struggles, as did the whole football team. They're only winning games by one possession. That came out last week. Well, a good Kansas State football team. That score was closer than the game actually was. You look at Peel, Christian Holmes as well at corner, really stepping up. I see Oklahoma State winning this game, a low-scoring game. I'm going to pick them to win 21-20. Another very close game for the Cowboys. Spencer Sanders, I just don't know how consistent he will be. Showed up big time last week. Very good for him. Nice to see him it looks like a next step. How long will that last? Not really sure. But his job seemed like it was kind of up in the air. At one point, Jalen Warren the last 2 weeks has absolutely ran the ball so well. He's almost up to 400 yards on the year. He's making an impact as a pass catcher, too. He's ran for 100-plus in back-to-back weeks. 150 all-purpose back-to-back weeks, that is. So I'm going to take Oklahoma State in this game. It's kind of a coin flip in this one, I think, being at home. They'll have a slight edge. But this is going to be a good game between two ranked Big 12 foes. Looking at Indiana, Penn State. ABC 7:30. The Hoosiers last year knocked off Penn State. 10.5 point dogs in this one. The biggest concern with them is how they stepped up in the trenches. Penn State ran the ball over them last year, that is. Penn State, though, their offensive line's been kind of sluggish to start the year. They're playing a tough, feisty defense. Micah McFadden, Marcelino Ball. They played very well against Cincinnati. McFadden got ejected, and it kind of changed the remainder of how the game went out. Who knows what would have happened if that ejection never happened. It was a bad targeting call. Indiana, kind of that team that's just getting by. They lost 2 games, the top 10 teams. Michael Penix had 3 interceptions in both of those. He didn't throw any touchdowns last week. They got going, though, 365 passing yards. They're running the ball much better, too. Against Cincinnati, they had some holes for Stephen Carr. Baldwin's giving them some good carries. 130-plus yards at 3 straight games. Regardless of who they're playing out there, that'd be Idaho or Cincinnati. They had some very good success against the Bearcats. That was impressive. Their offensive line, I think, is taking some strides in the right direction. They got to get Ty Frofogle the football, though. Only 21 receptions. I think that's a little too light. They're not seeming to get him very involved. Against Cincinnati, he was held in check. Only 1 grab. He bounced back, had 10 last week. So that number is a little skewed, but for the most part, they need to get him involved. Hendershot. DJ Matthews has really been their top playmaker, though. He's been doing a lot for them. You look at Miles Marshall as well. They have great talent. They're going to test these DBs of Joey Porter, Tariq Castro-Fields, Jaquan Brisker. The biggest matchup, though, will go down in the trenches. How will they handle Arnold Ebiketie? Who knows? I think it's kind of – the jury's still kind of out on the offensive line. They're clearly playing much better. Penix, though, needs to be making some better decisions. Last week was a step in the right direction. I think Indiana they can beat anybody. They've done it in the past. Before the Tom Allen era, they play everybody tough. They could do it again here. I just think that they're going to run the ball. Penn State is with some effectiveness. They're going to get back to making some plays with Noah Cain, Devine Ford, whoever they want to get as a second back. They're incredibly deep at that position. I see them winning 34-14. I think we'll go 24-14, that is, because this is a good Hoosier defense. It's the reason why I picked Indiana to have a good season and to beat the Bearcats a couple weeks ago. Very good unit they have because the defensive line, it's been very good. Ryder Anderson's really stepped up. Weston Kramer, those transfers, they have been so big for this Hoosier defense because that was their biggest question mark last year was their defensive line because it wasn't very good against the heavyweights. They're plenty capable, though, of T1 Mullen, Reese Taylor on the outside of locking up Jahan Dotson. Being at home, I'm going to give Penn State the edge, but Indiana, they can totally win this game. People are kind of writing them off. I think they can come out here, and have a big game against Penn State. So I wouldn't be shocked if this game's closer than people think. That's why I'm going to pick 24-14. Penn State could easily run away with this one, too, because the Hoosiers, they've just lacked energy at times throughout the year. I do think this game is going to be much closer than people think, though. In the Nittany Lions, they could be looking ahead next week to Iowa. We had a potential top 5 matchup. Both can take care of business this weekend. So, something to look for. Clemson and Boston College. I'm going to take Clemson in this one by just a hair. Really just don't even know what to expect from them. Their defense is great, but they're incredibly beat up. Will Shipley's out. Brian Bressee's out for the year for torn ACL. Shipley should be back in a couple weeks. DJ Ugalele, they threw slants, and it's nowhere near the receiver. They just lack chemistry. The offensive line is not playing well. No real commitment to run the football. Lynn J. Dixon just transferred, so it's just a mess of a team right now. They're very, very beat up. Lack that chemistry is noted. 15-point favorites for Clemson's a bit of a stretch. Dennis Grissel, I'm not really a favorite of. They played a pretty solid game last week. Got it to Zay Flowers. Pat Garwell ran wild against a not very good run defense. It's going to be hard, I think, for Boston College to move the ball in this game without Yurkovich. They really don't have that vertical passing game with Grissel. 2 years ago when he was the starter, he completed like 48%. He just wasn't very good. So, does Clemson cover this one? I really don't even know. I'd stay away from this game. I think they're going to win. Not even going to throw out a score because I really just do not know what to expect from this football team because their offense has just been so sluggish throughout the year. Even against an FCS school a couple weeks ago, they didn't do very good. So, I'm picking Clemson to win this game. No score prediction from me, but I do think Boston College will have a tough time throwing the ball vertically. Clemson doesn't give up much on the ground either, even though the defensive line's a little beat up right now. Auburn and LSU. Bo Nix got benched last week. TJ Finley let him back, former LSU quarterback. Maybe some bad blood here. I liked how the Tigers played last week. They stepped up. They showed them the defense. They're ready to continue. They still want to play football. That's a big question with them. Cordell Flott had a big game. He had a pick, forced fumble. Derek Stingley should be back for this one. They're playing less than 3.5-point favorites are the Tigers. How will they do in the trenches? If they can hold Jarquez Hunter and Tank Bigsby in check, then they're probably going to win this game. Finley, though, he played a great game last week, but he's still a young quarterback. Didn't play his best ball last year when he played for the Tigers. Kind of had it back against the wall, but Auburn after the Georgia State game, people are going to be writing them off. But people forget this is a very good defense. Kobe McLean, Owen Papai, Roger McCary in the back end. This is a very good secondary. I think they could potentially lock up Keyshawn Boudy and this receiving group. I think Corey Kinder is going to give them some good runs on the ground. Auburn really had Penn State's running game in check a few weeks ago. But Sean Clifford was incredibly effective, incredibly efficient. I think you're going to see kind of the same game from Max Johnson. He played really good last weep. He did have a bad interception. He's still on the year, though. He's been dealing 1,100 yards, 15 scores, only 3 picks. Again, keep calling him a gamer, kind of like Max Duggan at TCU, because he makes some flashy plays and some bad plays while also still being flashy. Against UCLA, threw the ball behind his back just to get rid of it. It was kind of crazy. But I like LSU in this game. I think they're starting to play with more confidence, more of a chip on their shoulder. Auburn, let the uncertainty at quarterback. LSU's better off playing against Bo Nix than TJ Finley. I'm just not a fan of Bo Nix. The talent I'm a fan of, but the player, I don't know. It's just last week he got benched for a reason. He wasn't making great plays. He had some good plays and bad ones against Penn State. Going here in the Death Valley, I don't think he's going to do much. Low-scoring game. I'll take 24-16 LSU because I do think they're playing with a much better edge. They're starting to figure things out with some of their younger guys. DJ Ujulari, I think he's going to have a big game. Their defensive line, I think they lead the nation in tackles for loss. LSU's really been getting to the backfield. No one's really noticed it. And, of course, they did a lot of that against bad opponents. Both of these teams actually ranked first and second in tackles for loss, though. Auburn first, LSU second. Both of these teams really like to get into the backfield. It's not just been against bad teams either. They do it against good teams as well. I think you're going to see a defensive clash here, but I think Auburn's going to have a little bit more struggle through the passing game. And I think this defensive line rotation of Jacqueline Roy, Mason Smith, they're going to be up for the challenge of slowing down this Tiger running game. Ali Gay, I think he's getting healthy, so they're going to have a nice little pass rush coming off the edge. I'll take LSU in this game 24-16. Going to wrap everything up for today, guys. A long little episode. Very loaded week. There's a lot of games I didn't get to talk about in this episode. Great weekend of college football on tap. Make sure you guys comment, subscribe, and leave a like on who you think is going to win these games.